and welcome to a parsimonious episode of We Only Look Thin. I am Katherine Weigel, and I am one of your hosts, and I've lost 150 pounds. And my husband, who is also an inspiration just like me, is...
Donald Weigel, and I have lost a little over 100 pounds.
Congratulations.
You know, one of the things I really like about this show is not only do you learn some tips about weight loss, but also you can pull out your dictionary, if you still have one of those, and look up words like parsimonious.
You don't get that on other weight loss podcasts.
No, other weight loss podcasts. We've got math. We've got...
we are hitting you with lots of science and math today.
We've got vocabulary words. We've got all those things, everything the kids love.
Oh, we have our finger on the pulse of all the cool kid things.
We sure do.
Google it, and parsimonious is right up there at the top.
This episode may have something to do with parsimony.
It does.
We're not going to tell you what that is yet. You're going to have to wait.
We are parsimoniously matrimony.
You probably know what it is. I don't know.
Anyway, hi.
Hi.
So we will start out, as always, with a tip of the week.
Tao!
We will talk about razors and parsimony.
Ooh. That's like the meat in the We Only Look Thin sandwich. You got a layer of bread, which is the tip of the week. Then you got the meat of the sandwich.
So hungry. Okay.
And then you got another piece of bread.
It's not an open face.
Why do I talk about food so much on a weight loss podcast?
Because that's why we're here.
Oh,
we're not here because we're actually thin people.
No, because all I think about is food all the time.
So we're going to talk about the Tao, and then we're going to talk about...
And then we have a product of the week, which actually came in handy to me this past week.
In real life.
Very
we are
much
living the dream. Sometimes I think we bring drama into our lives just so that we have things to talk about with you people. You people.
Is that a logic loophole of some kind?
I don't know. I've heard that some writers have to go and live life a little bit before they have anything to write about. So we've got to go and eat sandwiches to talk to you about
something. Should I get arrested so I can figure out how to maintain my calories in prison?
I know I've told Donald this before, but growing up as a kid in the 80s, the facts of life...
Yeah.
Family Ties, every single show.
Yeah.
There was always a funny episode about how somebody ended up going to jail.
Yeah.
It was just Mike Seaver goes to jail. Wah, wah.
Yeah.
And I just thought everybody went to jail.
Everyone
at
one point goes to prison.
Tootie went to jail.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If you watch enough 80s TV.
So I thought everybody went to jail. I might have asked my father how many times he had been in jail. I don't think he ever answered me, but he seemed kind of shocked. But I just thought, everybody went to jail. It's the 80s. It's what you do.
No,
it's a growing
probably
pain.
Because your father's been to jail many
Facts
times.
of life.
No, I'm sure he hasn't.
I don't know.
I don't know why I said that.
I don't believe that has happened. But he never answered me. Dad, if you're listening, I still don't know.
If you've been to jail, we'd like to hear about it.
To know about it.
If you could just hit us up on our Facebook page or our email about your experiences with keep counting your calories in jail.
I feel like I am just a bummer all the time.
We all feel like that.
No, I was watching Parks and Rec with our daughter the other day.
Right.
And
I've met her.
I think I've broken the pause button off of all of our remote controls because I impart wisdom and context into everything. No, but my parents never put context on anything.
I've experienced this.
They never stopped me and said, not everyone goes to jail.
I paused the shows to explain all the jokes that have pop culture references in them from before she was born. And you give her life lessons.
In this Parks and Rec, Leslie ends up in the adjacent town's jail, and it's the fancy town that doesn't like them. And the jail cell is it looks more like a Pottery Barn catalog than anything, and they get cucumber water. And the fun police, I stop it, and I'm like, I hope you understand that that's actually not what jail is like.
Yeah.
But I do
because you're afraid she's going to get a glamorized view of jail and want to go there.
No, but I do it all the time. Anybody wants to send me a new pause button or just let my kid enjoy her life instead of learning valuable lessons. She actually is can you just not teach me another valuable lesson today?
Yeah, she's full of valuable lessons. She's had enough.
We've got valuable lessons for you.
You, the listening audience.
You tuned in. This is on you.
You've not even gotten any valuable lessons yet.
They're coming.
Yeah, but they're coming.
The train is coming.
Starting with...
the tip of the week.
Tao! Tip of the week to you, dear.
Tip of the week to you.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow. You put a thing on it.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Little action there.
We didn't do that in rehearsal.
I sort of.
Whoa. Please don't turn off the podcast. That won't happen again. I promise you.
It won't. So the tip of the week. It's winter. Look outside if you're in the northern hemisphere. It's winter. Look outside in the southern hemisphere.
There was a polar vortex recently.
Polar vortex,
which I didn't even hear of ever before.
If you whatever you're doing right now, whatever you're wearing, put on 4 more layers. Like, put on your boots, put on your hat, put on your gloves. Yeah. Even if you are in Australia, I know some of you are in Australia, put on winter things if you're in Australia.
Yes.
So here's the tip. Here it comes. If you are not content with your current weight, but you're not motivated to lose more weight, you're tired of this whole thing, you're ready to turn off this podcast.
Yep. The motivation bus is not, you're
not even on the route.
No, you're not at the bus
Canceled.
stop. No, you're not even walking towards
Canaries
the bus
are
stop.
dead.
Yeah.
This has happened actually to a lot of people recently. The new year has just been full of stumbles. You're not motivated to lose weight. You don't know where your motivation is going to come from. Put on all the clothes that we just mentioned. Go over to your scale. Get on the scale, fully dressed.
Look at that number.
Take a look at that number.
How does that taste?
How does that taste and feel?
I'll tell you what, it's bitter.
It's not good. I think and I know I have actually done this, the weight starts creeping up. I know it started creeping up for me in the new year after our holiday vacation and then being sick in January and Valentine's Day and all these different things.
All those things.
I'm up on the scale a solid 5 pounds right now. I'm not going to lie. But it's so easy to get comfortable with that new weight. It becomes the new normal that we forget how quickly that weight comes back on. And if you are not motivated at your current weight and you still can't figure out how to kind of jumpstart yourself, get on the scale with all your clothes on. How does that number feel?
Yeah.
Does being up another 7 pounds, 8 pounds?
You don't like the number that you currently have? That number with all your clothes on is not going to make you happy.
So imagine you naked as a jaybird.
Like when I go to the doctor's office to get weighed, I don't even like to inhale while I'm on the scale.
Oh, no. I take my hairpins out.
I'm afraid that'll
I take off my wedding ring. I'm sorry. but quite honestly, if you need kind of a shock to the system or gosh, how does that weight feel? Put on all the clothes, get on the scale, see how it feels. I'm going to say that you're not going to like that number. Nobody likes going to the doctor and getting on the scale with the galoshes on.
Seeing that number, hopefully is motivation
sobering.
To get you. It's very sobering, and it hopefully will, is a wake up call that, you know what, I'm not happy at the number I am now, but you know what, I could be that number that is on the scale.
Well, and if the habits don't change, that is the number that is going to come your way. I have given that a lot of thought recently. We've got lots more to talk about on this episode.
Speaking of being bummer police, if the habits don't change, the number will. Yeah. In the wrong direction.
Exactly. And think about that. Like in the last 6 weeks, I'm up 5 pounds. Another 6 weeks, bring on the Easter Bunny. I could be up another 5 pounds if I don't turn it around. So we're going to talk about that in the second segment, the meaty middle of this. As I'm actually squeezing my side right now, feeling my meaty middle. So, look, it's happening.
I know, I can see it.
Again, another visual all
of our
joke.
Listeners at home cannot see it.
So that is the tip of the week.
Tao! Tip of the week to you.
Tip of the week to you.
I just promised them that wouldn't happen again, and then it happened again.
I was in chorus class in 7th grade, so you just got a little bit of 7th grade magic there.
All right. I didn't know. I stand corrected.
Now you know.
You are a professional 7th grade chorus. I didn't know you had that on your resume.
There was some joke that was like, wow, hearing you sing makes me respect and honor the actual singer of the song more than you. So
I used to love to do that thing like, hey, who sings that? And then they say, oh, it's, Britney Spears. And you go, well, keep it that way.
Exactly. Yeah. So tip of the week to you. Now we're going to...
Why was Britney Spears the only singer I could think of?
I was thinking Barry Manilow.
Like, why? Like, anyway, whatever.
Anyway, so now we're going to take you back in time.
Yeah.
The year is 1,300.
Whoa.
Ooh.
How do they use their smartphones to count calories then?
They don't. But
they didn't have Fitbits.
But you know what? There are English friars.
Oh.
In Surrey and England back in that time. That's where we're taking you. Where no weight loss podcast has gone before.
Yeah.
We are taking you to the town of Occam.
Ooh.
And there was a friar.
Does fryer mean that they're frying, like deep frying things?
No, it's like it's a religious thing.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, I think it means you get to navel gaze.
Okay,
but
that's not so bad.
William of Occam. Are you familiar with Mr. Occam?
I love his work, especially his early albums.
Well, it's funny because his name is not William Occam; it's William of Occam.
Yeah.
So good old Billy Occam, as we like to call him.
Billy O, I say.
We're going to talk to you about medieval thought. And Occam's razor.
Occam's razor. This is not a beauty product which helps you look good in a skirt either.
No. We are going to talk to you today about medieval thought.
Yeah.
And how it relates to weight loss. And you're sitting here going, what in the holy heck is happening?
How about we get to it?
So, we're going to talk about Occam's razor. And the law of parsimony.
We're bringing it back around. Callback.
Lex Parsimoniae.
Callback.
Lex Parsimoniae is Latin for...
You made that person up.
You're stomping on my joke, Donald.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, Lex...
You didn't tell me you had a joke.
Anyway, okay. We'll just fix this in post. Latin, Lex Parsimoniae...
Yeah.
Is Latin/American for keep it simple.
Oh.
That's what we're getting down to. It took us 20 minutes of fanfare to get to keep it simple.
So there is no such person as Lex Parsimoniae.
No, that's just the Latin term for the law of parsimony.
My pen name is Lex Parsimoniae now.
I like it. That should be your football quarterback name.
Fantasy football team name.
So we have complicated this. We have obfuscated this.
Yeah.
We are now going to get simple, and we're going to talk about how that applies to weight loss. And Donald has a fun tale about his own life in America to talk about the law of parsimony.
Yeah, basically the idea is that most of the time, the simplest solutions are the best solutions. That's the idea of Occam's razor. So in my own life, I have... for most of the time that I have been on my current journey venture, for those who are new listeners, that is a combination of the terms journey and adventure. Because
Don plays by his own rules.
Yes, I certainly do. I have had a desk job or a job essentially. I work on movies and TV shows, but essentially I am stationary in one place. I have access to refrigerators and microwaves, and so I bring a lot of food. I don't partake in, we get a lot of free lunches, craft service. There's free food at work all over the place, and I basically just ignore it and bring my own food and plan out my day. I pre-track things, all of the things that I had to do to get down to my current weight. And so I have done this job before, but recently I got a bit of a promotion, and I'm now doing a job which requires me to be on set every day. And that has been going on for the last 2 weeks. And so I haven't been eating the way that I'm currently eating before when I've been on set a lot. And I, came up with all of these different ideas about how I was going to make this work with the plans. And so I spent the entire first week that I was on set trying to, go to catering at lunchtime. They bring in catering trucks and there's buffet style meals set out, and you can basically take as much as you want, whatever you want. And I thought, well, okay, I will have a, quote unquote sensible lunch that is mostly salad, maybe have a little bits of the lighter things, and then I'll bring a few of my snacks to work, and then, I will go to the craft service cart or truck, and I'll try and stick to some healthier things. And I essentially spent the days bargaining with myself, like, oh, I can have a little more of the, the veggie ravioli or the at the catering truck. And before I knew it, I was eating, many thousands of calories by the end of the day.
Well, and it's that negotiating, and and I played a role in that too, because he would come home and say, like, I just don't know what to do, like, I'm out on set and I can't get my food. And I was like, well, why don't you only have this after this time and only get one plate? And it was like this very complicated kind of like, just web of design of how, like beautiful mind of like how he was going to enjoy catering and not enjoy things, and maybe only on alternate days or odd days or even days of the week. Like, it was very complicated.
And I've spent the last few years saying, I should not have anything that tastes like a treat until I know I'm about ready to go to bed. And then here I am on set and I'm like, the craft service guy on the show has this giant jar of trail mix, like salty trail mix with like nuts and raisins and M&Ms in it.
You're on a trail. And you need it to sustain you.
I'd be at a certain point where I'm like in the evening where I'm hungry and it's like the one thing on the cart that looks substantial, and so I have a scoop out of the thing.
And plus Don's vegetarian, so finding something that's like, it's grab and go, it's nature's miracle, like
and then I'm like, I don't even know how much is in a scoop, but I'm like guessing, and logging calories, and then it's like, oh, you know what, I need another scoop of that and another scoop, and before I know it, I'm eating literally like chocolate Twinkies off of the cart and talking myself.
Did you actually eat a chocolate Twinkie?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay. Oh, we're getting into the truth.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, chocolate
Well, I have
Twinkie.
some truths for you too, so buckle up.
And then I tried like, okay, how about I just starve myself until I get home? And then I got home and I was eating like another 1,000 calories when I got home, and trying all of these different scenarios in which to, eat of the catering and the craft service. And I would ultimately, every day I was eating something that was triggering me, and I was off to the races.
Well, and two, as a spouse, and I think maybe those in our listening audience can understand this, like, you want to support your spouse or your friend and be like, oh gosh, I totally get it. Oh man, you're working such long hours. Like,
I like to think of you as my spouse and my friend.
You are my friend.
Yeah.
I am glad we're friends.
Me too.
But like, I want to empathize with Don. And he's, it's been raining a lot. He's been working outside. It's been cold for California.
Yeah.
And he's out of his element. And so there's a big part of me that just wants to support him and go, gosh, I really get it. I understand. Like, well, maybe this just isn't a time to lose weight. And so there's the big part of me that just wants to support him. And then I come up with complicated answers on my own, like take a magic 8-ball. And if it lands on blah, 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 then you get to have the chocolate Twinkie.
There was also this part of me too that didn't want to, in the office, it's not super difficult to bring my own food and not be, I can just eat when everybody else is eating. And it's just sort of, I sort of blend in. But I also wanted to, blend in with everybody else who were going to the catering truck and sit down and eat with everybody at the same time they were. And I didn't want to be like the weirdo who brought food to work. But then it sounds ridiculous. And in hindsight, it sounds obvious. I had a revelation basically over the weekend.
Was it while you were shaving? You were like, look, a razor.
Oh, yeah.
Occam.
Yes, exactly. See, we're bringing it back around. I cut myself and decided to change my name to Nick.
I love that joke.
I do too. And so I remembered that I only look thin.
What?
I know. And I'm not somebody who can be trusted.
Keep it simple.
To eat buffet catering food
Can't be trusted.
Eat things off of a craft service truck
you will gain
table
100 pounds.
/cart. I know. And so I seriously, all of last week, 2 weeks ago, was in kind of this spiral, like not real, knowing what I was going to do. And then a week ago, I was like, you know what? I can do the exact same thing I've been doing this whole time. And
dun, dun, dun.
Don't eat any of the catering food. Like I get offered a free lunch at work every day, and I turn it down and I eat the food that I brought, and I could do the same thing on set. And so, so what if I'm hauling around my food bag? I find a place to, stash it, and I've got so I started prepping the food, bringing it to work, and just eating what I brought and not even touching the craft service cart, not touching the catering. And the last 5 days at work, I stayed exactly on my calorie count, and I managed to get some steps in. And, Are
you down on the scale this week?
Yeah, I was down on the scale this week, about 2.5 pounds. And I had been up about 3 pounds. So I'm almost back to even.
What have you learned?
The simplest solutions are sometimes the best solutions.
I can't control myself around craft service, so I don't eat craft service.
Yeah.
Simple.
Absolutely.
Instead of this web of complexity that we created.
Yeah, and in hindsight, it just seems so obvious, but I was trying to adjust to this, quote-unquote new lifestyle, and I realized I just needed to engage in everything I've been doing, all the habits I've been doing for the last few years.
Well, and to take this back to the scientific method, which I love doing,
yeah.
We are scientists, and we have to make choices kind of like with a different part of our mind than our emotional side, because the emotional side of me wants Don to be comforted and warm and taken care of and like make his life easier. But the science side is simple. Don't eat what you can't control yourself around. And in Occam's razor, it actually talks about the simpler the solution is, the more likely correct it might be than the more complicated answers. So if, there can be an infinite number of solutions to Donald's problem, and we could we could make pros and cons and lists. The simplest is just don't eat it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. Like, stop hitting yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like,
right.
Hadn't thought of that. Thanks.
Yeah. And it seriously was like the skies parted and the beam of light came down and hit me in the head. And I was like, don't eat it. Wow.
Well, and you would think after, a year of a podcast and over 3 years of losing weight, we forget what made us successful. Like, it happens to me all the time. I have to reinvent myself. I have to get back to the simple structure.
Remind myself of the rules that I put in place for myself that got me here in the first place.
Well, and it's when we go back to those old quick fix behaviors that we start gaining weight. Like, we are not fixed. Someone actually said the other day that they didn't understand why our podcast was called that. Because
you were telling me
we are thin people and we have it figured out, and we are visitors in these thinner bodies.
Yeah, no, this could all be temporary. I mean, and I seriously, about halfway through the first week of being on set, I was like, I am going to gain it all back. There's nothing I can do. I am just spiraling out of control.
I was like, I'm going to have to host the podcast by myself, I guess.
I don't.
I didn't actually think
that's what you were worried about.
No, because I was also going through my own private struggle, which, if we have a second, I'll also talk about that.
It's our podcast. We got seconds.
Here we go. But so Donald is struggling, and there are times when he's on track and I'm not, and vice versa. And I've been struggling since coming back from Disney World, and having a weight loss podcast and an accountability group, trying to keep other people up and motivated. Like last weekend, I was in a spiral of depression. I was overeating. I was secret eating candy. Like, it was bad news.
Oh,
and I was
that
like,
all?
Yeah, that's all.
I'm sorry, honey.
But I was like, I guess our podcast is over now. Like, it just went from like, you're an inspiration to like, you're a cautionary tale. But like,
we only look like a cautionary tale.
Yeah, we used to look thin.
Yeah.
The podcast by us.
We used to look
thin.
No,
don't get used to that.
Never mind.
But like, I was making it very complicated on myself, like letting my emotions take over, trying to come up with complicated answers. And like, our daughter actually said, like, do we need to put the chocolate in a safe with a lock on it that you can't get to? And I'm like, I am a grown woman, and like, locking food away is a complicated answer.
Yeah, and our daughter has no self-control, by the way.
No.
So when she's saying that,
it's bad. But like, I was kind of spiraling a little bit last week, and like I said, I was trying to come up with these complicated solutions. Okay, well, don't do this after this time. Don't do that. pre-track your calories, but then don't actually follow them and all this different stuff. And we've talked about it before, like have your goal be constant, but the way you approach your goal can be flexible.
Yeah.
And deciding based on the season of your life, the complexity of your life, what you're ready to commit to. And I was coming up with all these complicated answers. And on Thursday of this week, it dawned on me, don't eat candy.
What?
Don't eat candy. You don't need
What a radical idea.
all the candy. And it was like a weight had been lifted off of my shoulders.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have to negotiate. I didn't have to bargain. I didn't have to find loopholes. There's never just one mini Snickers. Like that is not in my vocabulary. I have created entertaining memes, including don't negotiate with terrorists. The terrorist is a picture of an Oreo.
I think that meme won awards, by the way.
It did.
Yeah.
But like it was nationally recognized by the internet.
Yeah.
You know. But like,
Meme Awards 2019.
But the simple answer is I cannot control myself around chocolate right now. And
Nope.
I am not eating handfuls of broccoli after 8 o'clock at night. I am eating candy.
That image of you like in the kitchen, like hiding, like secret eating handfuls of broccoli.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. So right now, I am taking a little spring break from candy because I cannot currently control myself around it. And I feel like this big weight has been lifted off my shoulders. The Occam's razor of the simplest answer is the answer that is easy to follow. Like there's no negotiating. I'm just abstaining right now. I'm eating other things, but I'm not eating that. So if you think about your life, and we see this so often, people post about challenges that they're facing. You know, oh, I'm eating all the snacks at work and my boss brings in things and there's bagel Fridays and whatever. And I just, I have no idea what to do. Why don't you not have the snacks at work?
Yeah.
Maybe and it seems simple when you're looking at it as a scientist, but when you're in the emotion of it, it feels difficult.
Yeah. Once I know this about myself. Once I start eating the snacks, I don't stop eating the snacks. There's no like eating a bag of Doritos at 1 p.m, because if I do that, I'm done. And that could be a logic loophole that I'm telling myself, but my willpower just disappears as soon as I have that bag. And so I keep that stuff in my life because I feel like I shouldn't say need it, but I feel like it helps me from like super binging, but I need to eat that stuff at the end of the day when I can't do too much damage.
Well, and two, just thinking about other circumstances, and some of them are from actual life experiences and others are just made up in my brain. But people who are like, I'm exhausted in the morning. Go to bed earlier.
Yeah.
Stop surfing on social media and watching Seinfeld. Like, you don't need it. Someone else mentioned every time they stop at a convenience station, gas station, they get, all of the burritos and tacos in the meat locker that they had there. You know what? Go to a different gas station.
Yeah.
If there's a McDonald's on the way home and you stop there all the time, take a different route.
Seriously.
Don't go in. Like, the more we negotiate with ourselves in the moment, the more we try to come up with complicated answers to these very simple, and it is easy. It is a simple answer, but it is complicated to talk ourselves out of all of that negotiating. And once we start trying to justify and, and I don't have whatever, and or lying to ourselves like, I'm just going to get a large iced tea. Oh, but they had 2-for-1 donuts because it's the afternoon and I love a value.
Yeah,
and
you
I
can't
don't
pass
know
up on a deal like that.
But I do stuff like that. And still do stuff like that. And, we've passed up Girl Scout cookies the last few times we've been accosted. And I've made it just sort of like, I am not buying them. That is a single serving container.
I've donated, and there's Project Thin Mint and all that where they give the cookies to troops serving overseas. But not buying them. But
there are so many parts of our lives that we make complicated by trying to force someone else's perspective. I argue with my child about what we're watching on Monday nights. Okay, well, you know what? Maybe just do something else on Monday nights. If your husband's watching football on Monday night and it aggravates you, just do something else. Come up with your own thing. Like you can change yourself.
Are you the person who's being aggravated in this scenario?
No, football season's over. But there are so many times, like, honestly, with that, it's like, oh, football must be nice. Like, we're like, oh, well, why don't I go do something?
Yeah.
Like, create something of your own instead of being mad that someone else is doing something.
Yeah,
The
sure.
simple answer is you can control your choices. And the simpler the solution, the better. And we let emotion take over. We let being a victim of circumstance take over. And I do this too. And I am having to remind myself all the time of how to stay engaged, how to keep things simple. As soon as my gears start grinding and I try to come up with complicated answers, like that's when I start.
Yeah.
In the morning, I'm doing paleo, and in the afternoon, I'm doing keto, and then I'm doing, intermittent fasting. And it's like, but that panic comes from indecision and from overwhelm of data. If I can't control myself around candy, don't have candy.
Yeah.
Like, we could have made this a very short episode, but we made it complicated.
No, that's not us. The simpler the better does not apply to the length of this podcast.
Yeah, but like you can't control your portions. Buy individual servings. If you can't control the individual servings, just buy one.
Yeah.
Like know yourself in the moment. So that's our 13th century advice for you.
Occam's razor. Did I mention? I know I didn't. When I was a teenager, I thought Occam's razor would be a great name for an industrial band.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
No, it's very, very
I can't believe no one's actually. Maybe someone has.
Well, and our
I should
alternate title for this episode was Occam Sock'em Robot because we can't stop with the name jokes.
It still might be Occam Sock'em Robots. We haven't decided on that yet.
Yeah, we're very funny and we like.
So by the time you're listening to this, you'll know the title.
We
of it.
like 13th century medieval comedy, and we also like 1980s comedy. So
Yeah.
we're a barrel of
Those
laughs.
are our two wheelhouses. I think it's time now for the product of the week.
Pow,
everybody.
Pow.
Product of the week this week relates to my struggles on set.
It does.
Yeah. So one of the things that I have found that's been really great for me, and this has only really been the last, year maybe, Trader Joe's started, ? I don't know how long they've been selling them, but in the refrigerated section, they have all of these, in air quotes, homemade soups. And they're all the ones I've tried are super delicious, and several of them are pretty low calorie. And there's a split pea. There's one that's called Harvest Chili. There's a minestrone.
You're getting two products for one right now.
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
He hasn't even
this
started
actually
talking.
isn't even the product.
Not
No.
even talking about the product.
So they're between about 200, like the whole 20-ounce tub of these things, and they're pretty hearty and filling, between like 225 and I believe 360 or 70 calories for the entire tub. I have found that I will eat my, sensible lunch, and then I'll have that as an afternoon snack later, and it really fills me up for a few hours. And especially with it's been chilly lately.
But it was easy to have nice, delicious soup in an office with a microwave.
I would put the tub in the refrigerator, and then at lunch I would just go to the microwave and heat it up. And what to do on set, I said to myself.
And imagine you could take the word set and change it to kids' soccer game.
Yeah.
Or a commute.
Yeah.
Or you are a door-to-door rebounder salesperson.
Maybe you're out on the road a lot for your job. Maybe you don't have access to these things. Or maybe you're just, you're traveling, whatever. So I went online, one of my favorite places to go on, and I read some reviews because that's what I do. And I bought this, they call it an insulated food jar. It's basically a thermos.
It does not have Snoopy on it, like his thermos from the 1980s.
Yeah, that's the only downside of it, is no
Grown
Snoopy.
up.
But the one I settled on is by a company called Energify. I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right, but it looks like Energify. And I'll put a link to it in the show notes. And this thing, you put hot water in it first to sort of warm it up, and you make your soup extra hot. And seriously, after like 8 hours, it is still pretty hot. And after 10 hours, it is still pretty warm. And so I try and eat it a little on the earlier side so that it's still hotter. But I have this thing, and I heat up the soup in the morning, and I put it in there, and it takes a little bit of extra work. But then I've got hot soup, like satisfying in the afternoon, and it has been great this past week.
Well, and two, for people who work in offices, and I know microwaves can be a dividing point in an office. If you're heating up very aromatic foods, it can anger
you can't cook
many
your broccoli
people
at the office.
But if you have say some cauliflower that you like steamed, but you want it hot in the afternoon, put it in a thermos and bring it to work, and it's nice and toasty warm.
And it came with this cool foldable spoon and a bag too.
Yeah.
So it's pretty sweet.
So he found a simple solution for a problem, and we enjoy it. We like solutions.
And that is your product of the week.
Pow!
Pow, everybody. So thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Please subscribe wherever you found this podcast. Keep the downloads coming. And if you'd like to reach out to us, like to give us some feedback, we would really appreciate you sending us an email. You can reach us weonlylookthin@gmail.com.
You can reach us on Instagram at weonlylookthin.
You can follow my many, many tweets on Twitter at weonlylookthin.
And you can find us on Facebook. Did we talk about that?
No, not yet.
We can find us on Facebook. And we've honestly gotten so many awesome messages of support on Facebook and on Instagram also.
Yeah, and through emails. We really, really appreciate it. And we've gotten some really nice reviews on iTunes. And if you're feeling generous and super cool and you want to be a buddy, give us a review on iTunes. It really helps us out.
Yeah, and if there are times when I don't reply to someone's message, it might just be because I don't see it, because sometimes on Facebook or Instagram, it hides messages from people who aren't followers and stuff like that. So it's not that I'm being aloof, but sometimes I'll look and see that someone sent a message 2 weeks previous and I hadn't seen it until then. So thanks for sticking with us, reply or no reply. But we so appreciate the feedback, and that we're helping change some lives, and we're changing our own lives. A week ago, we didn't even think we were going to continue this podcast. Now look at us inspiring everyone.
Yeah, so just remember, the next time you're shaving and thinking about razors and parsimony, that
as you do,
that Catherine and I are an inspiration. Asian. The information that you hear on this podcast is for informational purposes only. The hosts are not medical professionals. You should always consult with your doctor, nurse, or other certified health professional before beginning any diet or fitness program.